Well, good morning, aloha, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. Having a little technical difficulties over here. First, the chat won't let me chat and it wouldn't go live. Okay, here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm excited. I'm always excited to have family, and it's a family affair. Um, Today, my name is Leslie Montgomery. You are tuned into LKM Kingdom Living, Leslie's Lessons Learned, and I want to say welcome. I'm happy you're here. Thank you so much for being here. So, as I think about today, and my cousin Brenda, I had the wrong week. She'll be on with us next week. So we'll be here again next week. But today, I wanted to continue talking about what is lacking in our community, the Black community. One of my concerns is that every so much stuff is sugar coated or smoke screen. Especially in the low income areas, how they have it that uh, you think you're getting one thing and you're not. And we're going to talk about mental health today, but what I think about when I think about that, I think about how we don't go to the different committees to see what is available or what they're doing. What do I mean by that? The community town hall meetings. We don't seem to make those meetings. And when it's in those meetings is that when they make those decisions, because they know you're not coming, you don't go out. They have a certain amount of time before they can vote and say, well, we're going to do this or we're going to take this away. They give you an opportunity to be there. Most people don't even know that they have a town hall community meeting, usually once a month or a quarter. So we're just living life, and they're making these decisions, and they're slipping from the underneath people's right before their eyes. They're taking things away from them, and the next thing they want to know is how they do that, what they do that. They do it in these meetings. They know that we're not coming to those meetings. I used to go to the meetings, that's why I know. And because you don't come to these meetings, and they have a certain amount of time, and so when you come back to want to fight it, they'll say, well, we've had it on the table for such and such a time, and you weren't here to vote, so we made the decision. And I think that that's one of the things that is something that needs to change. In order for us to help change the community or our communities, we have to get involved. We have to get involved. I know that people say that it doesn't matter much about voting, but how about we start even before the voting? How about we start by going to these meetings and understanding what's going on in our communities, what they're saying you no longer need in your community, because that's where they make the local decisions from. And we need to begin to get in a place that we start making it to those meetings. And so I'm going to welcome my two. They're not even a guest, they're family, and both of them are wealth of knowledge. They're very educated. They serve on boards. They've had great careers and still have great careers. And I'm just so elated to have them on board now. Now, Donald has been here all month. Linda's been popping in and out, when she can with me. I appreciate it. But Donald, just take a minute and tell them some of the things you do. And then I'm going to ask Linda. But Linda, I know Linda's like one of them undercover people, she going to tell you what she wants you to know and leave the rest on the table.
Well, rather than talk about one of the things that I was involved with, I was the director for an agency called United Self Help. And what it was a mental health agency designed to help people with every type of mental health diagnosis start their own support groups, as well as our contract was information and referral. A lot of what you're talking about, Leslie, comes down to information, and my people perish for lack of knowledge, lack of information and referral. And so very often the poor people, regardless of race, color, or creed, They don't get the certain information, things that their child could benefit from. They don't get that information, or they're out of the loop. There was a gentleman, C. Everett Koop, that was the Surgeon General many years ago, and he distributed thousands, tens of thousands of literature on HIV and AIDS. A year later, they interviewed him, and he said the first thing he realized, the people that he was trying to get that information out to were not readers. And so you have to give people the information in a format that they can relate to and that they can pick up on. So very often people are relying upon, be it a church, be it a community organization, be it a politician, to give them certain information. And like so many things, if you're not a part of the in crowd, you're not going to get that information, and that's just the way it is. What keeps poor people poor is because they don't have access to the things that a certain small group of people have access to. The country club, just like you're talking about the community boards, the country club is where many of these big time meetings and business things are. So they keep women out of the country club. They keep non-white out of the country club. You're never going to be in that position to get that contact to be able to do your business the way they can do theirs. And it doesn't mean that they're all of that smart. They're in there when it's time to be in there, so they get that information. So, it is very important that wherever we as a people are going to for advice, be it a pastor, be it a community organization, we have to just kind of continue to stay on them. Can you find out about these things? Can you find out about any educational grants that my child might be eligible for? Can you find out about any extra monies that may help me with my rent or help me paint my apartment? There's all kinds of programs out there, but if the people are not exposed to it, then they just kind of throw up their hands and say, well, this is it for me. There's no sense me trying to do anything because nothing is going to improve. So
let me stop you for a minute right there, because one of the things that most people another thing that most people don't know is that if you on certain medications and you don't have the money, there are scholarships out there that will give you your medication you need, but most people don't know that. So I wanted to throw that in with, you're talking about the rent, you're talking about the food. They have community services that will help you with those things, but there are scholarships out there that will help you with your medication if you don't have the money for medication.
Very true. Very true. And that's the sort of things that, the people have to kind of ask, because you go to the pharmacy, if the pharmacist says it's $150 for 30 pills and you say, oh my God, I can't afford it. The pharmacist may not be the one to tell you about there's a program.
They're not going to tell you.
That this same drug, either the doctor's office or whatever, is there any programs that I might be able to get help with my medication? Basically, you have to ask. Very often people are intimidated and they don't even think they should ask the doctor certain things or ask the pastor or whatever. Never be, as I say, there's no shame in ignorance. There's shame in remaining ignorant. Okay. And so really the point is that you have to ask. You have to ask, because it's out there. It is out there.
So I want to say, hey, Tiffany. She said, hey, family.
Hey, Tiffany.
So thank you for that, Linda. I see you have your script in your hand. I don't know if you're writing something down or something.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Yes, Leslie said I'm her sister, Linda Elias, and I'm just going to piggyback on my cousin Donald a little bit and asking the questions and medication. And what I find is sometimes people don't even know what to ask.
Right.
And that's intimidating. So they ask nothing, I've had, and I mean, I'm in the profession, and there are times that it's like, I know I should be asking something more, but I don't even know what it is. And I've actually said, is there something I didn't ask you that I should have, but even with the pharmacist, a lot of it depends on who you get and how helpful they choose to be, or not just it's systematic. Let's just, this
It
whole
is.
system is set up to, and you're right, Donald, it's not just Black folk, it's the poor, to keep the poor poor.
Poor.
And I was and poor in, not just in finances, but poor in health. You're poor in health, you're feeding the pharmacies, you're feeding the medical system. It's like they talk about a pipeline to prison from school for
Right.
minority, especially Black boys and now Black girls. But there's a pipeline to the medical system
Yes.
for poor people
Mhm.
to keep it going. Or even today, I was in Hallmark. This is just an example, nothing to do with medicine, but an example of the difference in people and that you ask a question. And there was something that I wanted, and I said, "Do you have any boxes for these?" And the first woman said, "No, just no, I don't have any boxes." I'm like, "Okay, you don't have anything?" And I kept asking. I said, "Well, do you have bubble wrap?" I don't want it. And she hesitates. She goes, "Yes, we have bubble wrap." Lo and behold, I get to the register. There's another woman at the register. And what does she do? I said, "Well," she said, "you don't have any boxes." She goes, "I can find you a box."
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
find you a box.
Yeah.
And she found me a perfect size box,
Mhm.
packed it up nicely. But thank God the other woman wasn't at the register, because I wouldn't have got the box. I would have got
Right.
bubble wrap. It's the same thing. Some pharmacists are very helpful. I was at the pharmacy the other day and looking for something. This particular pharmacist actually came out from behind to help me find it. But I've been in that same store with a different pharmacist, and they don't even want to make eye contact.
They don't even make eye contact. They're just looking at the pills.
One time it was so bad, I came home and I got online and I made a complaint to their main office, because it was clear that I was being ignored.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so I said that to say that those are the little microaggressions that happen throughout the system.
Correct.
And lead to the disparity in our healthcare. And the organization, I forget the name that you worked for, Donald, we need
United
to
Self-Help. We need self-help all over the place.
Yeah, we need to franchise them. A resource center where you can go and get information.
Right.
And Leslie, you're right. It starts in your community. If you have children in school, you need to be at those PTA meetings.
You
Get involved in the PTA. Let them know your face. Because what you find out is, I remember one instructor telling me with Chrissy, like, she really should be in an advanced class. And he just said it. He didn't say right. He said, "It's weird. She's in all the other groups as the other kids, but when the other group leaves for, they call it PAT, something advanced, she's the only one left." So he was telling me, check it out.
Look into
that.
Same way with me. My mother there was a friend, like I said, neither my mother nor father had a high school diploma or GED. And she had a friend that she met back. Actually, she met her in the maternity ward, and she became a family friend.
Wow.
And she was a school teacher. And she said to my mother one time, she said, "Donald is getting 95s and 100s and all of these different tests. You should have him tested." And by her telling my mother that, and my mother going back to the school and saying, "Test him," I went from 3-2 to 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. Okay. But unless somebody told my mother, just like they said to you, you should have your child tested, she would not have known. And it wasn't like she was trying to hold me back or anything. She just didn't know. And so that's why I say so much of this, the people don't know, they feel intimidated. They don't feel, well, this person has education, who am I to question them about this, that, and the other? And so they don't get the information that they need. Going back to the pharmacy, though, The average senior citizen in America, regardless of race, color, or creed, is on at least 3 or 4 different medications. You need to go to the pharmacist with your medications and ask them, is there any negative side effects mixing these particular medications together? If you go to 3 different doctors and you get 4 different prescriptions, those 3 different doctors may not know what the other prescription is. And it could be, when you mix those things up, it could be harmful to you. So you can always ask, am I taking something that I shouldn't be taking this other thing with at the same time? Should I spread it out? Should I go back to the doctor to get something different so that it doesn't counteract what I'm doing? So these are the sort of things that we just have to constantly kind of get across to our community. You have the right to ask, the second opinion.
So when the last time you said that, and I went to the pharmacy, I also asked the pharmacist, would you get your prescriptions here? Do you fill your own prescriptions here? So I don't know whether I need to still be coming.
Find another pharmacist.
And she laughed, but this is what she said. She says, I do. She didn't say all of them.
She didn't say all of them. She said she does. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But that's a question to ask because of that pipeline, right. Because of what they put in our communities and they give us, because they have codes. They have codes they go by. They know who you are and what your nationality is. Mm-hmm. And with those codes, they give you certain things that they would not give to other codes.
Or don't give you the certain things, the opioid epidemic. They show you the one time racism kind of helped us out. A white person went to the doctor, complained of any kind of pain. They had them on oxycodone and everything else. Black person complain of pain, take 2 aspirin and see me in the morning.
Yeah, drug seeking.
But think about it. Yeah. Even back in slavery, how they treated us, because they said that we could take pain.
We could take pain. That's right. We didn't get the same pain. They just said, well, we're an animal. Animal doesn't feel pain. You see, so that's the point, though. So, but they overprescribed the opioids to the white community. And it was documented that Black pain was not perceived as strongly, if you will, as a white person coming in there for pain. So yes, so all of these, but it doesn't mean that you should be completely. Well, see, that's what happens. You have to be concerned, but at the same time, don't stop going to the doctor, the dentist, and everyone else. You just have to, before you go, possibly sit down and write out some questions. This way, you don't have to feel like you're under the gun. If you have, bring a young person with more education. Bring your child with you who will remember. 2 heads are better than 1. Maybe the doctor says something and you hear it one way, but if there was another person in the room, they may have heard something a little bit more. So you don't be afraid to bring people with you that you have some confidence in could help you out. As I say, there's no shame in ignorance. There's shame in remaining ignorant. And in today's world, you don't have to, just about any subject you can think about, you can find information about it.
That was good.
There's no shame in ignorance. There's shame in remaining ignorant. As I say, the information is out here.
Before you go any further, because your mom, and you was talking about her level of education, but your mom was the mayor in Burlington. You know what I mean? Anybody need anything, they came to her. She knew everybody. If they had a question, they didn't know how to do something, and I used to always tell you, the mayor here, you are the mayor, and her information was so valuable to them.
But as I say, she tried to stay informed, regardless what her education was. She tried to remain informed, and regardless of what she didn't have, she wanted to make sure her child got it. Right. Yeah. And there's some people that's not like that. There's some people that feel very threatened by their child having more education than them. And they can, like I said, talk about microaggression. They can have all kinds of negative attitude just because you do have the education. So, we have to accept the fact, if we don't help ourselves, who will? And if we have people right in our community, in our family, we have at least one lawyer. You know, we have a medical doctor.
We got doctors. We got
doctors
it all.
And lawyers, you know, and we have to avail ourselves to their information. You know, don't be afraid to question them, to call them up and ask them ask them questions. So, I mean, a lot of it is just getting over, I would say low self-esteem, but just being very shy and not wanting to be embarrassed, or I don't want to ask a question. Maybe he'll think I'm not intelligent or something like that. You didn't go to school for a lawyer. She did or he did. So ask the questions. Don't be afraid. You know, like you and I were saying, I did Social Security for 10 years. Anyone who wants to call me regarding any questions regarding Social Security, there's no charge for that. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. So, you know, don't be ashamed to ask questions, especially if it's going to help you. You just have to take that attitude. You know, the day could be the first day that you say to yourself, I'm going to take the attitude. If I don't know something, I'm going to find out about it. You know, that's just the attitude to take. Just don't blow it off.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me take a minute and just welcome those that have come in. The UK, Pastor Jackie, I want to say welcome. Ida, Pasha, all of you that are here, I want to say thank you so much for being here. And those that will watch later, I want you to know that you're welcome. And we're glad that you're here. We hope that something we say today, somewhere around the clock, we're going to get to the mental health. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. And I want to thank Donald, which is our real cousin. He's our real cousin. And he's in Hawaii, and it's 10 o'clock there now.
But 9:26 here in Hawaii. 9:26.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on with us and wanting to discuss some of these things that you are an advocate for, you know. And, you know, as we turn the corner here, Linda, you also, well, this is a part of the mental health, but you also work with families. What do you?
So there's a program called the Strengthening Families Program, and this program was created, probably maybe over 30 years ago, and it was initially created to help inmates with parenting skills. Those that had children, so that when they went home, they had parenting skills. And that's so important, because we parent the way we were parented sometimes, and that can lead to generations of incarcerations, generations of teenage pregnancy, just generations of dysfunctional habits. And the program was such a success that they broadened their scope, and now you have organizations, nonprofits, that offer the program for free for anybody that wants it. And it also includes the children now. So the program is set up where the parents and the children come together in the beginning, and then they break out, and the children go to their group. In their group, they're learning pro-social skills, and they're learning they're given scenarios of, hey, my friends want me to go to this drug party. I don't want to go, but I don't know how to say no. Because let's face it, many children and adults get caught up in stuff because they don't want to know how to say no. They want to be included. So they actually give them a script of what you can say. Well, hey, that's nice, but I'm going home. You can come home with me if you want to. You're welcome to join me. Sorry, that's my phone.
Oh, I'm like, did I turn some music on?
No, hold on. Let me mute for a minute. Go ahead, Donald, talk.
Last week, Leslie, you brought something up that was very informative to me, and we were talking about anxiety disorder, and you were talking about there were people in the family who never left the house, and that's referred to as agoraphobia. And it's so interesting that, we kind of looked upon it as just being a part of the person's personality. Aunt Marie was known. You could walk up to the door. If she didn't want to let you in, she didn't let you in.
But wait, Aunt
But
Jessie would go in the back and say
but when you said
home,
that,
but she never went out the house.
she never went out the house. And and when you said that, and you brought up the fact that there were other people in our family who also had that anxiety disorder, and I said to you, years later, here in Hawaii, my mother had the formal diagnosis of anxiety disorder. So it's something to always keep in mind when there's behaviors, even if the behavior is not hostile, if it's a behavior that is not quite right. Okay, you can either talk to the person, talk to the people, the loved ones of that person, and see the next time they go to their regular doctor. You don't want them to say you got to go to a psychologist. Next time they go to their regular doctor, you bring up the fact that I rarely leave the house, or I don't feel safe going out my door, or things of that nature, to begin to start having some conversations with the medical doctor that may help people with, just like as a people, we never received adequate medical care, either psychologically or physically. We've never received it. I always talk about, did anyone care that when the African slaves got off that ship, they had post-traumatic stress? Did anyone care that the Africans were always living under a certain amount of fear and anxiety, never knowing when somebody could beat you, amputate your foot, anything? You were living under terrorism for 200 years. And then after slavery, you had the KKK. The people lived under fear for all of that time. Did anyone ever think that that had a psychological impact upon our people? As a group of people, we lived in fear. I always bring this up. How many people on the day Barack Obama became president said to themselves, I hope they don't do anything to him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's because of the years that we as a people have experienced. If you do something too big, there's going to be a backlash to you. So don't you do anything too big. Don't you do anything too successful, because they're going to hate that because you did it. I mean, how many people said that, I hope they don't do anything to him the minute he became president? Because we know how this country has tried to instill fear into us of progressing. So that is something that we have to be conscious of, that we have a certain amount of fear that has been put into us. And until we can really challenge that fear, we're going to stay in the position. Through it living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. I'd rather live in poverty and live in the despair that I'm living in, because at least I know what that is. If I make a move, I'm going into unknown territory. So people just have to realize, as a people, a lot of fear has been put into us, and we have to really identify that, and as individuals do what we can to overcome that fear.
So, but that's powerful, that to really think about those things, because back when they were in slavery and coming up, when they responded the way they did to the fear, they was put in a certain category of either an animal or how you say it, other than the reality that you have caused the people to be that way.
Sure.
It's what you are doing to them that's making them that way. But you don't care enough, because what you're saying is, that's just right where I want you.
Right.
Right where I want them.
You're doing just what I want you to do.
Yeah. So think about it. When they do those researches, or not those, when they have children come in, the great example of this just comes to mind is about the dolls, the black doll, the white doll. When they do those certain, it's not research. Is it research? What is it called?
Yeah, research. Experiments. Psychological research. Yes.
Right. When they do those certain things, they already have their mind set on how they think you're supposed to respond. And one of the things I heard, I was watching the documentary, and one of the things I heard was that when they did these type of experiments, they only went into certain areas. You might have seen a Caucasian child on there. You might have seen Hispanic, but they came from a certain arena. They came from a low impact lifestyle. So now they take this and then they say the survey shows this, when they really haven't really respond. They haven't gone beyond what they want people to know. And the other thing is that it's something that we have to keep in mind. If they say 30 people are doing such and such, think about the ones they have not,
Yeah.
tested, or they have not even put into that category that doesn't fit in there.
Statistics can be manipulated.
Statistics.
They have books literally to teach you how to manipulate a statistic so it can come out to what you want it to be. Professor Clark was one of the people that did that research. The black doll and the white doll. Up to this day, we still many of our people still refer to straight hair as good hair.
Right.
And our natural hair, that's too kinky or whatever the case. And I mean, style is style. But if you have an internal denial of your own beauty, there's a difference. I mean, you can cut it, shave it, color it any way you want. But if you're doing, it's like I said to someone, look at the black male models. How many of them started off with shaved hair? Tyson and others. So you can be a handsome black man, just don't have black hair. Okay. Some of the original black models, young men, shaved hair. That's just another way, rather than me doing anything to it. I just cut it off, and that'll make me more acceptable to society. Why would a young man want to shave all his hair? You got people spending thousands of dollars to grow hair, but that's something that you don't see a 20-year-old white guy with his head shaved, and so you just look at these things just in terms of self-image. What am I worth? What's my value? How much value do I put into bling and material things as compared to my health and my achievements? The more I wear, the more I am. As compared, the more I achieve, the more I am. It's easier for me to buy a car than it is for me to graduate from college.
And there's another experiment. It was the marshmallow experiment. I don't know if you guys know about that. The marshmallow experiment, they took children and they would take 2 marshmallows and they would put the children in this room. I was just reading this one a couple of months ago, and they would put the children in this room and give them 2 marshmallows and say, if you don't eat the 1 marshmallow before I come back, you can have the other one. So the ones that ate the marshmallow before they came back, they tried to say that they had a lot of anxiety. They didn't complete things. They didn't follow instructions.
They were hungry.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. So then the ones that your children, they want your attention.
Go ahead.
And then what the ones that experimented, that experiment said that first of all, they limit the amount where they did these tests at, what type of children they did the test. And the other thing is that half of those children were hungry because of the area that they lived in. And then because they came back to the area after the children were in high school, college, to see, and they went to their teachers to see how well they were doing. So then they had a statistic saying that the ones that ate the marshmallow and didn't wait was the ones that was defiant in so many ways. So they have all these tricks and things, and then because it plays with your mind, because automatically what you think is what they say is like the Bible.
Yeah.
And most times it's not when it comes to our community.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, when it's all said and done, when getting into a whole concept of the Black family, if you will, the family dynamics can be one that increases self-esteem and self-worth, or it can be one that keeps you down. If you're always saying you stupid or you'll never make anything of yourself or things of that nature, quite naturally, that's going to be in your head for quite some time in your life. People don't realize just
Yeah.
within your family can make the difference between whether you think good of yourself or bad of yourself, regardless of how you present yourself to the outside world. Because every day, the people closest to you are giving you information, or they're programming you, hopefully in a positive way, but very often, as you say, as Linda was saying, you have self-perpetuating crime in a family, or you have self-perpetuating teenage pregnancy or drugs or whatever, because that's what's in the family dynamic. And unless you can break out of that family dynamic, then you're just going to keep on. And to break out of the dynamic means you really have to be strong enough, because you're going to stand on your own to a certain amount. Everybody is doing it. Why you not doing it? You think you better than us? That's going to be the first thing. That's going to be one of the first things. So you really have to have your mind right to be able to say, I love you, but there's certain things that you're doing that I know that road is going to lead me down a wrong path. I'm going to take another path. Very, very often, in order to do that, you're going to have to pull out. You're going to have to pull out. I was telling somebody like the Serpico, a clean man in a corrupt environment. If you clean in a corrupt environment, either you get corrupt or you take yourself out of that environment before somebody in the environment tries to take you out. Because as long as you're clean and they're corrupt, you have something over them. And so they're going to try to make way, be it on a job. You could be a hard worker and they don't like you because you work hard. They can try to do things against you. So you just really have to kind of stay focused and know what it is that you want to do, and not let yourself get pulled one way or the other.
Yeah. So Linda, we was carrying on as you told us to. So we want to go back to you, and because that's an amazing program that needs to be, heard, talked about. People, there's different type of programs for those coming out of prison. I'm not saying that there's not programs, but that's a healthy, balanced program right there. So finish telling us about that program.
So the program now is like I said, it's just expanded to communities. Sometimes it's court ordered. You get people who are court ordered to the program, and sometimes people just see a flyer for it and they'll sign up. But it's hard because because it was created so long ago, it doesn't quite fit the times as far as how often you meet, the times you meet, and the length of the program. But the information in it is valuable nonetheless. So, but where I was going with that is it's right back to, as Donald said, and you said, not even knowing what's available, and you talk about fear, that fear was instilled in African Americans and poor people, from slavery. And it just carries through the generation. And that fear will definitely hold you back. And I think that sometimes parents hold their children back because they don't want them to experience the pain that they experienced when they try to launch out.
We could even use you as an illustration. I said we could even use you as an illustration in your job. How they tried all them years, they kept trying to hold you back, and they never could. You know what I mean? And we would have to pray, and doors would be open. And by the time you left, we was just talking about this the other day. You was in the place you had to go through all that to get to the, what was you see?
I was deputy CEO of clinical services, and even in that, in the next step that was available to me, I said no, because I saw what they did to Black women in those positions. I witnessed it firsthand, and I said, no, not going to be anybody's scapegoat when they feel like it. But what I saw in, where I want to go, in mental health, what I wanted to bring up in relationship to the parenting and children is there's a study or a questionnaire called the ACE study. I'm sure you're familiar with this, Donald. Adverse childhood experiences, and they it's a list of, I'll share it with you, Leslie, and it's a list of questions about traumatic events in childhood, and based on your score, they predict you've been traumatized, you have, but it's different for Black children raised in an urban community. I think about, Good Times. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that show. But I remember this one episode where Michael was smart. He took a test in school. And one of the questions, they were shocked at how low he scored. One of the questions was you had to match stuff up, and it was cup and saucer, cup and table. And he said, cup, table. And he said, we don't have saucers in our house.
Right.
Of course, the right answer was cup and saucer. What's a saucer? I sit my cup on a table. So it starts in childhood with that standardized testing.
Right.
Standardized testing that, depending on where you went to school, how you read, how much you read.
That's right.
Versus watching TV or videos or whatever, you're not scoring well on those tests. You could be a genius. You could be that child in school that they want to send to, the special programs or the alternative school because you are bored out of your mind.
Right.
Exactly. That little stuff that they gave you is like, I could do this in my sleep, but you can't articulate that. You're not giving me enough work. I'm beyond this. Because I sit in, contrary to your belief, I sit in my room at night and I have my little flashlight and I'm reading. There are Black kids doing that. That's their escape. It's just to read. And then that leads to the lower paying jobs, not getting into college, living in communities that don't have access to health care, not medical, not psychological. We are, as a people, history has taught us not to trust health care, and mental health and therapy, that's taboo.
Right.
But if you know something's wrong with little Johnny, something's wrong with little Johnny. Find somebody you can trust and get them some help. It's not always medication. It may just be that a neutral person needs to sit and talk to them and find out what's triggering this behavior. What is it? Where is it? Where is it coming from? Don't be so quick to label our children.
Right. Oh, that's an automatic. They get money for that.
I read an article about one school system where, they were calling the kids delinquents because they weren't coming to school, or they were just missing so much school. And the nurse, yay nurses, she picked up on the fact that some of the kids weren't coming to school because they didn't have clean clothes.
Right.
And they didn't want to come in dirty clothes. They had that much pride. They didn't want to be picked on, told they were smelling. She advocated for the school to buy a washer and dryer.
There's a few schools out there now that has that. Yeah.
And these kids could come in and they could wash their clothes. And guess what? They started showing up for class. And guess what? They did well. That's why it grieves me so much when I hear politicians that want to take away, breakfast programs or lunch programs, because it's true for some kids, that's their only meal. And I'm going there because I want to say all of this leads you to where I worked at a forensic psychiatric hospital. And when you don't have, like your group had helped people with support groups and supporting each other, when you do not have a support system, it is so easy to end up in the criminal system.
Exactly.
It is so easy to end. I mean, when I learned how easy it was to end up involuntarily committed in a setting like that, it's scary.
It's a thin line.
It's scary. So it's back to knowledge, but just a few statistics here, and I know we can do what we want with statistics, but in general, 40% of white people will seek mental health care if they need it, versus 25% of African Americans. Because it's probably even less when you break out males and females. 10% of African Americans do not have health care. And I question this statistic because I actually think it's probably more than that, versus 5.2% of white people and Hispanics. And when you sometimes you can have health care but not have access to it.
Right.
You can have insurance, but you don't drive. You use public transportation, and the nearest doctor is 10 towns over. And when you go, you've got to take a day off from work, which you can't afford to do. So what do? You suck it up, buttercup, until you get to the point that
you can't go anymore.
And that's why when you get there and it's too late.
Mm-hmm. It's advanced. Whatever it is, it's advanced.
It's too late. Or, well, I won't say too late, it's advanced. Or even, the distrust, and I use the Tuskegee experiment with syphilis. These things are in the back of your mind. And then let's jump up to recent, 2 years ago, here in Philadelphia area. I don't know if you all remember the whole MOVE group.
They burned the whole block down.
Burned the whole neighborhood down because they weren't even squatters, really. It was their homes, but they didn't like the way that they lived. They just found out that University of Penn and Princeton University still had the remains of some of the children.
I did hear that.
They were in the Penn Museum, and for years, those children's remains were used in studies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, as a Black person, why would I want to go?
Right.
Why would I want to go? Especially, but you said it's a thin line, Lacey, but we have to be careful not to become paranoid to the point that we hurt ourselves. Go to the doctor. If you're not comfortable with that doctor, if you're not comfortable with that nurse practitioner, find another one. Find another one. And as Donald said, you got somebody in the family that's a doctor, a lawyer, and I'd say most families do, that reach out. Don't feel like you're stupid or Paula, a family member, a friend, a neighbor. I have neighbors that call me because they know that I was in nursing and worked in the hospital, but I didn't do that. That wasn't my area of expertise, but let me see who I do know.
Exactly.
Let me see who I can find out. So I'll stop there because I could go on, but don't allow that history to stop you from doing what you need to do for yourself.
So I guess the best way to put that, don't let it repeat itself.
Yeah. And don't let fear hold you back. I mean, as much as the society, you say in the white society, they have motivational speakers. So despite the fact that they're on a higher socioeconomic level than people of color, they still have people that give them guidance that give them all the encouragement that they need to go further. So, it's like I said to somebody, it was cracking up. I said, I'm not aware of any black politician who ever stood in the door of a school to prevent white kids from going to school. So the whole point is that not that there's an excuse. There's a reason that black people don't have education. There should be no reason that white people don't have education. Nobody has ever tried to stop them from getting one. But you have plenty of ignorant white people out here as well. So, the point is that just because you have the information doesn't mean that you're taking it in, doesn't mean that you're using it. There was a celebrity that was basically, he was interviewed and he said something to the effect of, well, everybody can make it in America. And I said to myself, I said, all white people haven't made it in America. So how you going to stand up and tell all black people they can make it in America? All white people are not rich. All white people have not been successful. So how are you going to tell black people? If you say every individual has the potential of being successful, I'll agree with that as an individual. But as I say, all white people in America are not successful. So the idea that somehow all black people can be successful, where are you getting that from? Everything, it really does start on an individual basis. The individual has to really kind of assess themselves. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How can I strengthen myself? How can I reduce those weaknesses so that I can do the things in life that I want to do? I have the right to do them. There's some people that don't even think, God knows how much I can bear. So I just stay in this position instead of trying to go above, because that's all I can do. Again, we go back to that fear factor. Just the fear of the individual. I don't want to change because it's going to be different in my life. And so the individual really just has to make up their mind. If I'm going to improve, improvement means it's going to be a change from what I'm living now. Let me sit down and kind of visualize what that improvement is going to be like. You see the background. In the background of me, there's a excuse me, there's a mural. When I lived in Brownsville, I bought a mural of Hawaiian sunset. And that mural was in my wall in Brooklyn for a year and a half before I actually moved to Hawaii. I wanted to see it. Anything that you want to achieve, you first need to be able to see it, to have a full vision of how it's going to happen. What's going to happen when I go to school and get that degree, or what's going to happen when I go for that job. And again, it's like what Linda was saying. I've been an executive director and all those sort of things, and I've had people that challenge the whole idea. But what are you doing here? And so you really just have to take into consideration. Not only are there people who want to see you fall, they'll throw grease and banana peels in your path.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware of that. Don't let that cause you not to go for that job, because I tell you, I went for a job as a supervisor. I was the statewide coordinator of mental health services for the state of Hawaii. And before I submitted the job, I said, I started saying, well, are they going to accept me, or blah, 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 blah. I went for the job and I got it. But I had to keep in mind that, yes, there would be resistance. If you're going to let resistance be what causes you not to go for that thing, then you really have to strengthen your mind to say, regardless of what I do, there's always going to be a certain amount of jealousy or resistance. I can't let that stop me from being what I have the ability to be, And you
that's on both sides of the fence. It's not a color thing.
No, that's
not a
like
color
I said.
thing. Yeah.
The white society has rich motivational speakers, rich life coaches. A life coach, depending upon their experience, can charge over $200 an hour to give advice. So, the idea is that it goes both ways. Don't be afraid to make that step, and that's really the biggest challenge, is making that first step. You want to buy a house. That's fearful. Okay, you want to improve your position on your job. There's a certain amount of fear to that. But think about what it is that you're afraid of when you do those things, and try to work on reducing that fear.
Another, you made a good point. Another thing that sometimes is lacking for people of color is that mentor. that mentor in the promotion, because as you're talking, it's like, when I'm thinking, you know what, why didn't I pick up the phone and call Donald and say, hey cuz, what am I going to be up against in a position like that? What should
Right.
I look out for? How do I prepare
That's right.
myself? So
Yeah.
you have and I'm sitting here now, it's like, why didn't you even think about that? Because we're used to just doing it on our own,
On our own.
you
You know,
know. And I looked for mentors within the organization, within the system. But sometimes that mentor, and I always had mentors in the church, that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have gotten as far as like, and family, my grandparents, cousin Rosa, she was always, you can do it, you can do it.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes that's all you need is somebody to tell you that.
yes, yeah. So reach out.
Reach out. Reach
Reach
out.
out.
Reach out.
Reach
Just to
out.
let people know, yeah, I've been here in Hawaii since 1981. I've had lawsuits in the name of race, sex, and age discrimination on jobs since I've been here. I've won my case. That's another reason why I'm a life coach. All the things that I wound up doing. Then I worked for legal aid for 10 years. But personally, I've had it, as I said, I've never had a problem on a job because of a job poorly done. It was a job well done and people who couldn't deal with the fact that I was doing it as well as I was doing it. I had great popularity. I had a lot of respect. There were people on that job that couldn't stand the fact that I had that kind of respect and popularity. So, in many cases, be prepared. The more together you are, the more you have to be prepared for people who are going to resent the fact they expect you to not be prepared. The best thing you can do is to prepare yourself and know your subject matter. Prepare yourself, because as long as you're qualified, they can be as jealous as they want to. They don't take you off of your position. But when you let yourself get into self-doubt or you start slacking off, there's jobs that can make it hard for you. So you figure, oh, well, they're making it hard for me. I'm not going to work as hard. You just did what they wanted you to do, because now they can say, oh, we're not discriminating against her. Her work is not up to snuff. You see, as I say, you don't want to lighten up. You want to tighten up, knowing that they're looking for you to lighten up. You make yourself even more qualified. Okay, that's what it is. You got in that position because you were qualified. You stay in that position by keeping yourself qualified. Don't slack off. You know.
Yeah, keep educating yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's 4 o'clock, Leslie, but I do want to comment on a post Ida put in.
Yeah.
That's like claiming Boston, Dorchester, and Roxbury are high crime areas in Massachusetts. But if you research it, other towns with higher crime are never mentioned on the news. And we see the same thing in the community that I
Everywhere.
live in. And that's still part of the system,
Yeah.
because if they can keep that going, then it lowers the values of your homes.
Right.
It lowers, the school system isn't as good, and all those things. It's still a matter of your legacy, your financial wealth, what you have to pass on, not to pass on, but just another area that is used high crime
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
keep your housing down.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, and then white flight. We saw that happen here. And then in our communities, Donald, you kind of touched on this. As you start to step out, sometimes you have to leave the community because you just can't survive there. And that does hurt the whole community, because then children in the community don't get to see Donald get dressed and go to work and wear a suit, or not wear a suit but go to work every day. They don't get to see, the the Walker family prospering down the street. They don't get to see that it is possible to get out. All they get to see are the things that keep you where you are.
And to add to that, that's why all 3 of my records were done in Harlem, 2 of the 3 after I moved to Hawaii. You know, to this day, there's something that I always wanted. I sent it to you, Leslie. I can send it to Linda. The history of the health movement in America is very much entrenched in a white supremacy philosophy. That was the whole point. And so as I explained to people, I'm the Hank Aaron of vegetarianism. To this day, I've had people who refuse to acknowledge me as a world record holder in the name of health and nutrition. Okay? Vegan and vegetarian, black and white. To this day, they refuse to. I sent my book to somebody in England, a vegetarian group. Our members wouldn't be interested in your work. I said, I just sent you a book on vegetarianism. What wouldn't they be interested in? Oh, well, you can send it, but no guarantee anyone's going to read it. You know, I had the editor of a health magazine look at me and say, oh, yeah, you're the health preacher. We're going to write something about you. Don't hold your breath waiting. That's a direct quote. Okay. But now, what is he saying to me? He's saying, I recognize you as a world record holder. I have no intentions of acknowledging it. So what did I do? I broke another record the next year. And that's the truth. He said that to me Thanksgiving of 1984. June of 1985, I did another record, and I did it in Harlem. So the point is, you can't let the negative things stop you from communicating with your family. You know, I was just saying to Pam this morning, I said, you know, we always send calendars to everybody in the family. You know, we always reach out to the family. Yeah. And the point is that wherever you are, because of COVID, you learn nowadays you can reach out to anybody all over the world. What we're doing right now, I'm in Hawaii, you're in Jersey, you know, you're someplace else, but yet we can still communicate. Okay. And so that's really the point, is communicating. You got FaceTime. You don't need Facebook. You got FaceTime, you know, to really just talk to people, and don't be shy. You know, don't be shy. It is one of the most important things that we could do, is just stay in touch with each other, see how people are doing. If there's something you can help people with, why not? Why not? You know, this didn't cost any of us anything. Hopefully it helped someone listening to it today.
Yeah. I was thinking about even, and it is Ida and her comment, and I was thinking about how they also will make our community look like it's really the drug community, when we're not the highest in the drug community.
Oh yeah.
You know, how they everything is, they always put us, and we need to not watch news as much, because they always put us on the news as the crazy. No, they're crazy when they do something wrong.
Right.
When it's we do something wrong, it's
with thugs or hoodlums.
With thugs, with hoodlums, you know, with all these things. But they pat them on the back when they do something wrong, because that's a mental condition they had all the time.
Conditioning. That's a conditioning. You know?
So all these things, the crime, listen, even in Philadelphia, they'll tell you North Philly, Germantown, West Philly is the worst area, but there's an area that's over in the Northeast. I can't think of the name of the area right now. The drugs over there are so heavy, but they keep it quiet.
They keep it quiet. I mean, it's like white collar crime and street crime. The street criminal is usually the poor or non-white criminal. The white collar criminal is somebody like Enron, who can rip off people's entire, retirement fund and everything else,
and get away with it.
You know, he's in a much bigger position to rip off more, but it's just done in a more sanitized way. If you're a street criminal, then you're mugging somebody on the street, as compared to yesterday, I was looking at the bag or something. I just said, oh yeah, Biden was right. The same bag, it had less stuff in the bag. That's criminal. Okay, that's criminal. But when you're big, it's the price of doing business. So they can rip you off and get sued. And even if they have to pay so much money,
they don't care.
It's the price of doing business. you know,
They don't
and so they don't look upon it as being a thug. You know, it's not a thug when you do it in a $5,000 suit, you know, and you're sitting in an office doing it and you're manipulating the computer. That's not being a thug. You know, thug is when you're on the street there. So, I mean, we have to really just kind of get that out of my mind. Who's the bigger criminals?
Right.
You know, somebody can steal a whole country, or somebody can steal a pocketbook.
Mm-hmm. Gangsters, that's what
Gangster,
they are.
yeah. And you know, and just like we say with the gangster, we're thugs. But then, or the last episode of The Sopranos, that's a national event. You know, you have movies on every type of gangster that there is. That white gangster, you know, Godfather is one of the most respected movies, and Goodfellas, and all of these other movies. When he's a gangster, he's a star. Okay, and that's why I was looking at this Breaking Bad. I never watched it, but here he's somebody. He makes meth, but he's making meth to get money for his sick wife. So that makes it okay for him. See, you know, they can always sanitize the fact that he's a hoodlum and a gangster and a thief. You know, they can sanitize it for that. So we have to, as I say, it's self-image is so important for us. Self-image, and really by self-image, I mean the self of the image. You don't necessarily have to look into anything in the media. You have to really look in the mirror. What's your self-image? And as long as you know what you are about and what you can do for yourself, that's the image that you keep in your head first and foremost. No one else out there, because if they're putting an image out there, it's some part of it that they're manipulating, that they're controlling. If for no other reason, then they decide how often they put that image out there. You know, so I mean, you know, it's self-image, self-care, you know, mental health, which comes into self-image, because if you have a poor image of yourself, why should you take care of yourself? That's really where, you know, this is the challenge that I've had all of these years. If you're looking down upon yourself, then why should you take care of yourself? So, you know, that's where it starts in terms of education or health or anything else. The more you see yourself as being worthy, you know, you worthy of it, you worthy of a nice home, you worthy of a nice way to live. It doesn't have to be opulent, but you are worthy of the finer things in life. Do you really believe that in yourself, or do you think, I'm not worthy, I'm not worth it? And who said to me when I was 5 years old, you'll never be anything? You know, or even a school teacher that said, you know, I can see you 5 years from now being in jail. They've had teachers that have said stuff like that, and people keep that in their head. You know, so you really have to purge yourself of the negative self-talk, you know, and be more positive self-talk.
Yeah. And thank you for being here today. We'll continue next week. But they also have, even in the school system, they already depict who's going to be in jail, who's not. And they train those children towards that way.
Mhm.
So, you know, and if you don't know that, you don't understand that, you just think you have a bad child, you just think this child doesn't listen, you think all these things, but at the same time there's underhandedness going on to feed your child, to make your child think that they will never be anything. I remember I took a test one time, and in the test they told me only thing I was good for was working in a factory. And I
Okay.
said that day, I said, it won't be me.
Okay.
You know, it won't be me. And I didn't work in factories. I worked in factories when I was young, you
Mhm.
know, but
Mhm.
was determined I was going to have office positions, and that's what I had. I
Right.
always worked in the office, you know, because when they told me that, I was like, not in this day in life, you know. And it was something, because I'm talking about it now, so it was something that was in my mind.
Right.
But on the other hand, I was like, not in this lifetime,
Right. Right.
you know. So, you know, they know how to they have codes. They have codes in the doctor's office. They have codes in the school. They have codes in the community between the politicians, that if you don't know what those codes are when they're speaking to you and what they're saying, you'll miss the whole plan that they have. And it sounds good on the outside, but on the inside is something different. I remember, and I'm ending with this, Kennedy, Edward Kennedy, and everybody loved Edward Kennedy. And I was watching this documentary, and it talked about how what he felt about people of color, and he had a special name for them. And in this code, when he said this name, the politicians and all knew what he was talking about. When he died, they brought him, I think it was into Dorchester. They paved the street where the Catholic Church was. They made everything right there in that one little area look good. So when the camera is showing the funeral, everything looked good. And they did nothing to the rest of the poverty community. We have to really, really get involved to the place that we understand what's going on and why things are happening. I want to thank you guys for being here today. I really appreciate it. We never really got to talk about the mental health, but we'll be back next week. We did.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Okay, we did. So,
we
don't take me in mind. But this was a good topic. A lot of people might not want to hear this topic, but I urge you to pay attention to what's being said, because it's not, it doesn't change. It just gets more sophisticated in how they do it.
Correct.
They still come in. And when I say the low income, even though I'm saying that, it's to a people of color, period. It doesn't matter what area you live in, they have a certain mark that goes along with you. So whether you're in a low income or a higher income, it's just that in a higher income, you have more available to you because you're most times have more of a whereabout, more with you. But even in that, if you go into real estate, there's red line areas you cannot live in.
Right.
You can dream about. But one thing I noticed, whatever area they keep you out, we come in and they move out. If you do your research and you look at Willingboro, we couldn't come in there. We came in, they moved out. Whatever area they tried to keep you out of, whenever you come in, because they can no longer keep you out, they're going to find another place to make it their home. Now, Willingboro, they're coming back into because of the value of what is in there. And it's what do they call that? Because they have a special name when they go in and come back out. They come back. Gentrification. And
yeah. So,
when so when you see them start coming in, you better believe they've had some town meetings, and they're just not coming in there.
Well, that's what they tell me. They tell me I wouldn't know Brooklyn. They say Brooklyn has gentrified, other than Brownsville. Brownsville is still the hood, but the other parts of Brooklyn, they tell me, well, listen, those brownstone buildings, those are very valuable architecture. Very valuable architecture. So yeah, they tell, even in Harlem. I have a friend lives in Harlem. Sure, they've gentrified a lot of stuff. So, you know, everybody knows our value but us.
They're coming for Brownsville. Yeah, but that's a good point. Everybody knows our value but us.
But us.
But what I wanted to say is, in spite of everything we talked about today, is Maya Angelou, Mrs. Angelou would say, and still we rise.
And still we rise.
That's why I said they give us lemons. We know how to make. We immediately make lemonade.
Yeah.
And that's a true point. Even though they tried to drag us down, keep us down, we've always, even in slavery, they knew how to make lemonade. So, but we want you to make lemonade and be wise in your making your lemonade. We don't want you just to make lemonade. We want you to do more because you're valuable, you're special. And the value that you have, that you we as a people are so educated. We're so talented. We we have value that they try to make us think we don't have. You have some of the best artists. You have some of the best chefs. You have some of the best teachers.
Anything you can think of, any profession,
Right.
you'll find a Black person in it
Yeah.
at the highest.
Yes. Just the fact of really getting them to the place to uh, teach the community who they are
Right.
would be a big value. So we're going to say thank you for being here today. We have been on an hour and almost a half, but thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. And for those that have been on listening, if you have any questions, just sometime DM me, and next week maybe we can answer them. But remember, you are valuable, and that you are important, no matter what the news may say, or those in the community that don't know their value may say. You are valuable, and we want you to know that you're needed in your community. We need good politicians. We need good doctors. We need good lawyers. We need good cashiers. Whatever it is, we need the best of it. And it's in our community. We don't have to go outside our community to look for it. It's in our community. And we want our communities to start being fruitful. So until next week, I want to say thank you so much for being here on Sunday, Leslie's Lessons Learned. We'll be talking to Dr. Glenice Wilson, Harris Wilson, and she's a, what is she at?
Psychologist.
She is, but who does she counsels grief. Oh, she's a grief counselor.
Mhm.
And for a year, grief had taken her under. So we're going to talk about the grief that counselors go through on Sunday. We're going to come from the aspect of uh, because you're a grief counselor, does that mean that you don't grieve? So until then, I want to say thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And my cousin Brenda will be on as well with us, and we'll continue the conversation. So have an amazing day. Go ahead
Aloha.
now. Aloha.